This is a passive scouting map tutorial for the map Prokhorovka. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you various locations that are commonly used in the game by spotting tanks. And I'm going to show you what the range is and what you can reach and what you can't reach. And I'm going to show you what is the best spotting location to take up in the game. So first, let's cover this position over here. You can see that from here, you can only see maybe a little bit over the rail into the center of the rail. You can see tanks that show up over here only when they're ready to fire, which is kind of useless. They're going to be spotted anyway by your allies that are on the other side. And you can only spot tanks that are advancing across the hill. You're not going to spot the guys that are a little bit further back. And the way the game is in the higher tiers, they're afraid to advance. So this is not a very good position. This is another position that is used by some people. And you notice over here you've increased your range, and you're going to be able to spot tanks that are over here, which are going to be tank destroyers that snipe. You're probably not going to spot this SPG because the hill is going to block your view. You might be able to spot the heavy tanks over here, but again, you're going to spot them. They're going to be spotted anyway by other heavy tanks or light tanks that are actively spotting in the middle. You're not going to be able to spot the active scouts. So this position here is not a very good position. And I've seen people talk about this position as if they think it's a good position, and it just isn't. So then you have over here, and over here. Now the first one is the easy position, perhaps if you have a slower tank or if you don't have good camo, etc. The problem with this position is it doesn't really reach far enough into enemy territory. So you can spot the active scouts that play in the middle, but you're not going to be able to spot the tank destroyers that line up along the red line, and you're going to have difficulty spotting the tank destroyers and SPGs in the backfield. So then we have this next position, and it goes a little bit deeper, but not by much. You're going to be able to spot the tank destroyers that set up on the red line, which could be one or two, and maybe you're going to get an extra tank in. And then you've got this position here. Now this position is more difficult to get into. You're going to get spotted more often trying to get here. You got to get here fast. But it's going to give you a little bit of an extra coverage, and maybe you'll spot something closer to the back, but it doesn't reach all the way to the red line. So this is ideally the best position in the game for passive scouting. This one is going to be the most commonly used, and this one is going to be, if you're more conservative, but it's, like I said, it's not really going to spot very much. So let's move to the south spawn. The south spawn, we have various locations here that I've identified that are commonly used, and where the enemy tanks are going to show up. Now let's talk about this position first. For this position, you're likely to get spotted at some point, and the coverage area is not very good. You can spot tanks that show up here. Again, they're going to get spotted anyway at some point. They're going to get proximity spotted by tanks that are over here. You can spot tanks that show up over here, but it's not that often that a tank will show up here, but they do show up here. So this is not a really good position. Now you have this position here, which goes out to here. The good thing about this position, if you get here quickly, you're going to spot the heavy tanks as they're on the way to battle. I've done it many times. In fact, what will happen if you play this position, the tanks will never make it to the hill because they're going to get spotted on the way there, and they're going to end up staying in the river. They don't know why they're being spotted, and they're afraid, and they're just going to stop because they don't want to get hit. Even if nobody fires at them, they're going to stay in this river. So this position is a pretty good position, and it pins the enemy down on the east side. However, you're not going to get a lot of spotting damage. Your allies that are up here might be able to hit this tank and this tank and this tank, maybe even an SPG, maybe even that SPG, but all the heavy tanks that end up sitting over here, they're not going to shoot at them. And you're probably not, well, you will, depending on how you set it up, you might spot these tanks over here. So this position is actually pretty good. It will give you an advantage on the east side. This position here is the next one. If you don't have good camo, you have to stay further back, or if you're slow to get into position. Unfortunately, as you can see up here in the north, you're not going to spot anything. You might spot the active scouts that are running over here, but that's it. You're only going to spot those active scouts. You're not going to spot the tank destroyers that are up here in this area, You're just not going to spot them. So then we've got this position, which is another position that people like to use. It's going to let you spot here and here and here and here. It's actually pretty good. Now, when you compare it to this position, which is the one at the halfway point, you're going to notice that this position is a little bit riskier and it doesn't give you much more coverage. You're going to spot a little bit more over here, but not much more. And it's going to allow you to pierce through the camo. It's going to give you a little bit better penetration to discover these tanks. However, this position is a small benefit compared to this position. Now, obviously, there's a lot of bushes over here, and there's a lot of bushes over here, and this is high up on the hill, and this is lower on the hill, and there's a lot of differences between these two positions, and it's going to take testing to determine which one's actually better. But this one has a far greater risk of being spotted than this one does, and the rewards may not be as great. So consider these two positions if you're playing on the south spawn. Consider this position if you're playing on the south spawn. And for the north spawn, I definitely recommend this position. The problem with this position is enemy light tanks aren't going to think that you're there, so they're going to come rushing up over here, and they're going to proximity spot you before they get killed. I know because it happens all the time. So it's a risky position, but it has its rewards. This position is usually pretty safe, but everyone expects you to be there. This one is a little bit too far back. This one is okay. You might get some spots over here. Maybe it's good to go over here until this tank is dead and then go somewhere else. This is a useless position. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.